There is a look that appears on someone's face about 6 seconds before they find out their marriage is over. I have seen that look thousands of times. It is a kind of confusion mixed with recognition, like they always knew this moment was coming, but convinced themselves it never would. I sat across from a woman last year. Her name was Diane. She came to me because her husband had suggested they try counseling. She thought that was a good sign. She thought it meant he wanted to save the marriage. Within the first 10 minutes of our session, I knew the truth. He was building a paper trail. He wanted to be able to tell himself, tell his family, tell his lawyer that he had tried everything. He had already made his decision. He just had not told her yet. I watched her talk about their plans for a kitchen renovation. I watched her describe a vacation they were supposedly taking in the fall. And I watched her husband sit there with that particular stillness that I have learned to recognize as a man who has already left, whose body remains in the room while everything else has packed up and moved out. That look appeared on Diane's face about halfway through the session. She stopped mid-sentence. She turned to him. She said his name like a question, and then she knew. I am telling you this because I need you to understand something. By the time most couples show up in a therapist's office, one or both of them has already decided it is over. They just have not admitted it yet. Sometimes not even to themselves. The data says couples wait an average of 6 years after problems begin before seeking help. 6 years of damage. 6 years of wounds that never healed properly. 6 years of scar tissue building up around their hearts. I do not want that to be you. Which is why I am going to tell you exactly how to know whether your marriage is dying. And I am going to tell you while there is still time to do something about it. There is a researcher named John Gottman who changed everything we know about why marriages fail. Starting in the 1980s, he built what became known as the Love Lab at the University of Washington. It looked like a regular apartment, but it was wired with cameras and sensors that could track everything. Heart rate, blood pressure, facial micro-expressions, the exact words couples used when they argued. Gottman would bring couples in and ask them to discuss a point of conflict in their relationship. Then his team would follow those same couples for years, sometimes decades, and record which marriages lasted and which ones ended. What he discovered changed the field forever. Divorce is not random. It follows patterns. Specific, measurable, predictable patterns. And those patterns can be identified within minutes of watching a couple interact. You can learn to see these patterns yourself, and once you see them, you will recognize them everywhere. In couples at restaurants who eat in silence, in your sister and her husband who cannot mention each other without that little edge in their voice, in your own home if you are honest enough to look. The first pattern is how you start difficult conversations. Gottman calls it a harsh startup. It means opening a conversation with criticism, sarcasm, accusation, or hostility. Research shows that 96% of the time, you can predict how a conversation will end based on how it begins. Those first 3 minutes set the trajectory for everything that follows. Here is what a harsh startup sounds like. You never listen to me. You always do this. What is wrong with you? I cannot believe you forgot again. You are so selfish. Here is what a gentle startup sounds like. I need to talk to you about something that has been bothering me. Can we find a time to discuss how we are handling the finances? I felt hurt when this happened, and I want to understand your perspective. Same problems, completely different approach. The first triggers your partner's defenses and guarantees a fight. The second invites dialogue. When you start harshly, you trigger a physiological cascade in the other person. Their heart rate spikes. Stress hormones flood their system. Their body shifts into a defensive posture before you have even finished your first sentence. They are no longer listening to understand. They are listening to defend themselves. From that position, resolution becomes almost impossible. Now let me tell you about the 4 behaviors that predict divorce more reliably than anything else. Gottman named them the 4 horsemen, after the biblical harbingers of apocalypse. When these 4 things become regular features of how you communicate, your marriage is heading toward destruction. The first horseman is criticism. Criticism is different from a complaint. A complaint addresses a specific behavior. You said you would handle the bills this month, and you did not, and now we have a late fee. That is a complaint about something that happened. Criticism attacks the person. You never follow through on anything because you do not care about this family. That is a character assassination. One is about the behavior. The other is about who your partner fundamentally is as a human being. When criticism becomes a regular pattern, you are sending a message that something is broken at your partner's core. You are not saying they made a mistake. You are saying they are a mistake. Nobody can hear that message over and over without shutting down, fighting back, or eventually leaving. The second horseman is contempt. This is the most dangerous one. In all of Gottman's research, contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce. Contempt is treating your partner as if they are beneath you. It shows up as eye-rolling, sneering, mockery, hostile sarcasm, name-calling, speaking to them as if they are stupid or worthless. Contempt communicates, I am better than you. You disgust me. You do not deserve my respect. I have watched couples where one partner could not mention the other without a slight curl of the lip, a tightening around the eyes, a tone that dripped with disdain. Those marriages never survived, not once. When contempt takes root, it poisons everything. It destroys the basic foundation of friendship and admiration that marriage requires. Contempt builds slowly. It accumulates from resentments that were never addressed, grievances that were stuffed down instead of discussed, years of feeling unheard and unappreciated. By the time it shows up on your face when you look at your partner, you have been cultivating it for a long time without realizing it. The third horseman is defensiveness. This is the reflexive response when you feel attacked. Instead of listening, instead of considering whether there might be validity in what your partner is saying, you immediately explain why it is not your fault, why they are wrong to be upset, why the real problem is actually them. Defensiveness sounds like, I only did that because you always do this other thing. It sounds like, well, if you did not nag me constantly. It sounds like, that is not even what happened. You are misremembering. Defensiveness is blame wearing a mask. You are deflecting responsibility and throwing it back at your partner. Even when you are partially right, even when they did contribute to the problem, defensiveness prevents resolution. It tells your partner that you will never take ownership, that you will never admit fault, that talking to you about problems is futile. The fourth horseman is stonewalling. Stonewalling is complete shutdown. You stop responding. You check out. You give one-word answers or no answers at all. You might be physically present, but emotionally you have evacuated. People stonewall because they are overwhelmed. Their nervous system is so flooded with stress that they cannot process information or respond thoughtfully. So they shut down as self-protection. The problem is that stonewalling feels like abandonment to your partner. They are reaching for you, trying to connect, trying to resolve something, and you have become a wall. From their side, it looks like you do not care enough to even engage. It is devastating. Men tend to stonewall more than women because men typically have more intense physiological responses during conflict and become flooded more easily. But anyone can do it. Now here is what I need you to understand. Everyone does these things occasionally. Every couple on the planet has moments of criticism, defensiveness, even contempt. That is not the issue. The issue is frequency and intensity. The issue is whether these become your default patterns of communication. And most critically, the issue is whether you can repair the damage after it happens. Repair attempts are what separate marriages that survive from marriages that die. A repair attempt is any effort to stop the negativity from spiraling, to de-escalate before things get worse. It might be humor that breaks the tension. It might be reaching for your partner's hand. It might be saying, "Wait, can we start over? I came at this wrong." It might be as simple as, "I can see you are really upset and I do not want us to hurt each other." In marriages that work, repair attempts succeed. Both partners are willing to step back, breathe, and reset. The repair might not solve the underlying issue, but it prevents the conversation from becoming destructive. In marriages that fail, repair attempts either never happen or they get rejected. One person reaches out and the other slaps their hand away. When repairs consistently fail, the relationship is in critical condition. There is another finding from this research that I think about every day. Couples who stayed married happily responded to what Gottman calls bids for connection, 86% of the time. Couples who eventually divorced responded only 33% of the time. A bid for connection is any attempt to get your partner's attention, to share a moment, to invite engagement. It can be tiny. Look at that dog across the street. Did you see what your mother posted? I had the strangest dream last night. It can be significant. I am really worried about my father's health. I need to talk about what happened at work. These are invitations. Your partner is reaching toward you. Turning toward the bid means responding with interest, acknowledging them, engaging. Turning away means ignoring it, being too distracted, not responding. Turning against means reacting with hostility or dismissal. Those moments seem insignificant. They seem like nothing, but they are everything. Every time you look up from your phone when your partner speaks, you make a deposit in the emotional bank account of your relationship. Every time you ignore them, you make a withdrawal. Over years, those deposits and withdrawals accumulate. Couples with a healthy balance can weather storms. They can have a terrible fight and recover because they have built reserves of goodwill and trust. Couples who are overdrawn have nothing to fall back on. One bad fight can finish them. I watched my own granddaughter and her husband turn away from each other hundreds of times over the years. I watched them scroll through their phones while the other was speaking. I watched them dismiss each other's bids with shrugs and sighs and obvious disinterest. They were bleeding slowly, and neither noticed until nothing was left. Most marriages that end do not explode. They go numb. The partners stop reaching for each other because reaching only leads to rejection. They stop talking about anything meaningful because meaningful conversations only lead to pain. They become roommates who share a mortgage and occasionally share a bed, but have stopped sharing their lives. By the time they seek help, if they seek help at all, the damage has been accumulating for years. Some can still be helped even at that late stage. Many cannot. Here is something that sounds pessimistic but is actually liberating. Research shows that 69% of problems in a marriage are perpetual. They will never be fully resolved. You will argue about money for the rest of your lives. You will argue about parenting for the rest of your lives. You will argue about whose family to visit for holidays, about how clean the house should be, about 100 things that will never have a final answer. Couples who stay together and stay happy are not the ones who solve all their problems. They are the ones who learn to live with their differences without destroying each other. They discuss the same issues over and over with humor instead of hostility, with acceptance instead of a desperate need to change the other person. This means you must choose your problems wisely. When you marry someone, you marry a particular set of unsolvable problems. Make sure they are problems you can live with. And here is what still surprises people when I tell them. Successful marriages are not built on passion. They are built on friendship. The couples who make it genuinely like each other. They know each other deeply. They are interested in each other's inner worlds. They treat each other with basic respect and kindness, even when frustrated. Romance fades, attraction fluctuates, but friendship, real friendship, can last decades if you tend to it. I am going to tell you now what I probably should have said at the beginning. I am 87 years old. I practiced marriage therapy for 48 years. I sat across from over 6,000 couples. I watched many of them save their marriages, and I watched many more destroy them, often without understanding what they were doing until it was far too late. My own husband, Bernard, passed away 7 years ago after 53 years of marriage. We were not perfect. We had hard stretches, but through all of it, he was my friend. I knew his fears, his hopes, his ridiculous little habits. He knew mine. We turned toward each other thousands of times. We repaired the damage when we caused it. We showed up for the small moments. I miss him every single day. And I am telling you all of this because I want you to have what we had. If you recognized yourself in these patterns today, if you felt that uncomfortable twist of recognition, that discomfort is a gift. It means you are paying attention. It means you still care enough to be troubled. Do not wait 6 years. Do not wait until the resentment has calcined into contempt. Look at your partner today and ask yourself honestly, when was the last time I turned toward them? When was the last time I started a difficult conversation gently? When was the last time I took responsibility instead of defending myself? The research is clear. The patterns are documented. We know what kills marriages and what saves them. The only question is what you will do with that knowledge.